Hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and I'm seeing myself on two screens. We're on Facebook Live. We're also on Instagram Live. So wherever you are, welcome. And it's great to be here. Today is Thursday. It's amazing. It's only 2 weeks to Thanksgiving, which means only 2.5 weeks to RSNA, which means I have to start getting my stuff together. And one of the reasons I picked cinematic rendering for this Facebook Live is because we are doing a refresher course, myself, Steve Rowe, and Linda Chu, on cinematic rendering at RSNA. It'll be the first refresher course on cinematic rendering, so I think it's a good opportunity to show what we've been doing. But before we do that, first I have to do my weekly thing is we're advertising Butterfingers. Again, who makes Butterfingers? I can't even tell who makes it. The Butterfingers company. Oh, it's Nestle's. So Nestle's, if they wanted to advertise on CTisus or give us free Butterfingers, there's 2 Butterfingers. We'll take it. It's leftover Halloween candy. So cinematic rendering, before I speak about cinematic rendering, I think one way to talk about cinematic rendering is to show you this. Does anyone know what this is? This is extremely valuable. I got this last week. I got 4 of them. 2 for Max, 2 for me. 1 for my office at home, 1 for my office at work. And you should know this. If you know anything, this is impossible to get. Pixar Animation Studios, Pixar Animation Store. I was at Pixar last week visiting Ed Catmull, and I got this. You can't get this anywhere. You don't got it, you don't got it. Don't come steal mine. This is, you should know, this is like the key thing to history, right? This is from Luxo Jr. This is the ball in Luxo Jr. Remember the lamp? The ball is my imitation of a lamp. And the ball. Remember? The little kid knocked it down, took the air out. All right, get to be there. But nevertheless, it's really super cool. And I was at Pixar, and that also lets me congratulate Ed Catmull, who was the founder of Pixar, is the founder of Pixar, or co-founder of Pixar, who is stepping down at the end of the year as the president of Disney and Pixar. And he'll be staying at Pixar for a while, and then he'll be going on to Act 2. It'll be incredible what he does next. I'm sure he'll have his new book. I remember he had that book published, we talked about many times. And we look forward to seeing great things from Ed. And remember this. But the other reason to remember this is Pixar. This is where volume rendering came along. So we did a lot of work, and we presented at RSNA as far back as 1987 on volume rendering. And so when you fast forward 30 years, you have a new form of volume rendering, which is cinematic rendering. And what cinematic rendering is, it takes advantage of the chips, the newest boards, the speed of the new boards by NVIDIA, to be able to create very accurate 3D images, but also use multiple lighting models. So many of you have seen on CTisus, we have a lot of stuff on cinematic rendering. We have lectures, we have cases. As well as on Facebook, we push a lot of cases there, Twitter, but especially Facebook and Instagram. There's a lot of images on cinematic rendering. And I will say, whether you do cinematic rendering or not, and most people don't, it has tremendous visual appeal. When you show it to other radiologists, they love the images. They probably don't want to do it to spend time, but they love the images. And when you show it to non-radiologists, they really understand how those images can be helpful to them in their surgical practice or in dealing with patients or just dealing with themselves in a better understanding. We're also looking, excuse me, I still have my cold. We're also interested in using cinematic rendering as a way of doing texture mapping. So for example, looking at the pancreas and detecting tumors earlier. I think one of the big uses of AI will be in texture mapping to optimize that display. We've spoken about that with volume rendering for 30 years, but I think now it's probably realistic that it can be done. And so the goal would be to be able to create incredibly high quality images, but do it all the time and do the optimal images. One of the problems with volume rendering we've always spoken about is you're like a little bit of an artist, you're like Picasso. You can paint things in or paint things out. So we don't want to mislead people, hide things, or display incorrectly. We want to display perfectly, but the word perfect is often difficult. And I know that when I do a case and I'm showing the pancreas, then I'm showing the celiac and SMA, then I'm showing them the soft tissues, then I'm showing the liver, I'm doing 3 or 4 different full rendering sets, which you can do interactively, but it always concerns me, how do I know that I'm showing everything I could see? How do I know I didn't use the wrong rendering algorithm? And we know that with rendering algorithms, you can optimize detection. So in my mind, imagine AI, which would choose the best or maybe the 4 best images, depending on the volume, what you're looking at for liver, pancreas, vessels, and provide all that to you as a get-go at the starting point. So one of the things with AI is our best hope for helping us do things faster and better by really providing intelligence to us and doing a lot of the tasks we know we should do and want to do, but just can't do, just a matter of time. So I think that part is very exciting. So that's where cinematic rendering can go. In the short term, cinematic rendering, I know Siemens has it, obviously, but I'm sure the other companies that are in that same space, from NVIDIA to some of the different companies, whether it's GE and Toshiba and Philips, will come up with forms of cinematic rendering. They may not call it cinematic rendering, they may call it photorealistic imaging or some play on the words, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the same thing. I think the images are too compelling. Siemens does not have a patent on rendering. It was done by a guy named Hoeyes in the Netherlands, but you can implement it many different ways, so there's really no patent on that because there's no patent on lighting. So you can do all that sort of thing. I think the Siemens version is the version we use and we're happy with, but it's in need of a lot of improvements, but that's a good thing. And I think we are looking at actually doing cinematic rendering on an iPhone. We have been doing that. The question is how to push it forward. That'd be super cool, doing it on an iPad, an iPhone, being across the board, being able to render very quickly for our colleagues. And that's something I think that will be important. And especially since you can use cinematic rendering, Steve Rowe submitted an article on cinematic rendering for education. And so that becomes important, being able to create images on the fly and then use them in practice. So I think, to me, that's pretty exciting. And I think that will be helpful. Now, one thing is we always ask people for questions. And besides John Biachino, who's in CT across the street in the hospital, I don't see a whole lot of people asking questions. And John's just laughing because he's at lunch. But I'll be happy to take questions. Let me say hi to people from Cameron Chapman from Australia. Seems like a long way away. And then Liliana, who's either at Stanford or in Houston. So let me say hello to those guys. But let me talk to you a little bit more about the cinematic rendering. So one of the things we've learned, and I've done this for a couple of years now, is how to optimize the visual parameters. So I have presets now, probably 120 presets, where I can optimize for looking at bone or muscle or vessels, optimize for looking at pancreas or liver or spleen or kidneys, or just optimize for different tissue types. You need to be able to optimize and interact because you need to speed up the process. And we did this with volume rendering way back when, and we always spoke about that in terms of workflow. Workflow becomes critical, particularly when you're doing things often, and we're doing a lot of 3Ds a week, 250 to 300. So you need to be able to create the images in a way that's time effective, cost effective, but also provides all of the information. Some of it is practice, some of it is just getting the right software in place and getting the environment to be able to do it. So we're very upbeat about that possibility. When we look at applications at this talk, we're going to have Linda speak about pancreas and liver. So for looking at lesion detection, lesion classification, lesion staging, differentiating neuroendocrine from adenocarcinoma, from some of the cystic lesions, is indeed all possible, and we're putting a lot of effort into that. We're also using it as a way of creating images for 3D mapping, for preoperative planning, and for predicting response to therapy. So we're putting a lot of effort in there. In the liver, we're doing a lot of work in terms of tumor detection, tumor classification, not to the extent we've done pancreas with AI, but we do a lot, and I've done a lot of cases of liver tumors, both primary and metastatic. And Linda will talk about that. Steve's going to talk about musculoskeletal applications, whether it's trauma or congenital disease, as well as talking about vascular. So we've done it for the coronary arteries and the cardiac chambers and the thoracic and abdominal aorta, many different applications across the spectrum of acquisitions that we use. And so that's going to be that becomes very important. So whether it's looking at a coronary artery or looking at bypasses, looking at dissection and the extent, all of these things can be provided better with cinematic rendering. So again, one thing about cinematic rendering we always do emphasize is acquisition is paramount. If you don't have a good acquisition, well-timed, enough contrast, adequate volume, adequate phases, you're going to do very poorly. So I think it's very, very important to be able to do the right phases, right, and do things correctly. It's like this ball. You can't be messing around. It's round, perfect circle. If it was not a perfect circle, it would collapse. It would fall down. You need a perfect circle. See that? This is my Will Chamberlain. Slam dunk. Anyway, and then I'm going to speak about some of the principles, why we do cinematic rendering, its advantages over classic volume rendering, what things we'd like to see with cinematic rendering coming forward, what are some of the other applications from spleen to some of the more vascular processes, what is it that we're not doing that we could be doing or that we should be doing or that we will be doing in the near term. Those are all things that become very important to us, and I'll be speaking about that. I'll probably also talk a little bit about how you can use cinematic rendering as a base for augmented reality. So we are looking at doing augmented reality, at Hope 4D, and you can use these type of data sets. So imagine the quality of the cinematic rendering now, but think about it in a 4D type display where you could look at things and around things. This whole idea of augmented reality, both for the radiologists, but especially for our referring physicians, is something that's very exciting to us. I've seen a few things over the past couple of years, but I have to admit most of them are relatively crude. So we're excited to see the Siemens version. I've seen some work done, and I have a version in my office that we just got it installed, and we need a few little things changed to make it work correctly, but we will get there. So I think that area is very, very exciting. We can go back and then let's finish up in this talk, talking a little bit more on the cinematic. Where do we see it going? I think that we see it more automated, computers selecting the right parameters. I think we see it also faster, where you, the radiologist, do the processing, and it's not sent to someone else to create images for you. I think that you are going to see this expansion of the applications that we can use cinematic rendering for. I think one thing we've been disappointed is how hard it is to publish articles. Reviewers don't really give a criticism except, well, no, that's the answer, we're not publishing it, no. Well, that answer is no. But no is the answer, so we're kind of modifying when we send things, modifying the paper. So if you're putting something together, it may be something to keep aware of. But I think that will get better with time. I think a challenge in science always is when people aren't doing something, nobody wants to accept it. Why do the rest of the people not accept it? So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg phenomenon. But I think it will be okay with time. Let me see. Oh, yes, I totally forgot. I got to post online. Today is International Radiology Day. Today's December 8th. International Radiology Day. Damn, who could forget such an important thing? Today also is, well, in the US anyway, we're right in the middle or near the end of Rad Tech Week. Most of the time, Rad Tech Week is every single week. Who are they fooling? John, B, you guys are pulling a wool over the rest of us. It's Tech Week every week. So this is special Tech Week, extra special Tech Week. I mean, so many techs in Baltimore, Dunkin' Donuts ran out of donuts. And that's how much it was. There's so many techs in Baltimore that Einstein's Bagels didn't know what was happening. They would know Einstein because all the bagels were sold out. There had a lot of cream cheese and butter left, but the bagels were gone. So Tech Week, bagels, the fried chicken place. There's so many chickens walking around without walking around. I think it's chicken joke, but there's so many chickens who are hanging out that are being fried. There's chicken. I text like fried chicken. I don't know why. Then we had some texts complaining. So what happens, we gave, our chairman was very nice about, they gave techs a blanket. I think, what else did they give them? I'm not sure what the blanket you're supposed to do with it. Maybe if it gets really cold, use a blanket. If your car breaks down and you're stuck on the side of the road, you have a blanket. I guess that's possible. But you could choose what food you wanted. So there was like 5 food groups or a whole bunch of food groups. One of them was salad. I'm not sure what food group that is. Maybe if you're a cow, that's a major food group. But some of the techs were complaining that some of the techs chose salad. And not everybody likes salad. People want chicken. People want beef. People want pizza. People want donuts. People don't want salad. People got salad, dressing on the side, bread. I tasted the bread. The bread was stale. The salad, is what people will say. But nevertheless, so we have wonderful techs at Hopkins. And let's see who's out here. Any of my techs from Happy International Day? Susie said that our director cooked for us. If our director cooked for us, I wouldn't eat the food. I'd be scared. We got a Bluetooth speaker? Whoa. Oh, yeah, Bluetooth speaker. I was a speaker at the NVIDIA meeting in Washington, and they gave me a speaker. I was a speaker, and they gave me a speaker, a little speaker about this big, little Bluetooth speaker. It was a pretty good speaker, considering speakers are small. It said NVIDIA on it. It's in my office. Hope no one stole it, but you get a speaker, gets a speaker. Whatever. Okay. Anyway, anyone has any questions? We will be publishing a lot. You also see we have a new person start with us, Emily, and she's like now started us on LinkedIn and on Pinterest, so you can see us there. It's also linked from the homepage, so you can go there. And if you haven't used those two, it's probably worthwhile checking it out. And we will be checking it out as well and building up on it. And there was chicken, and then John says there's chicken for the salad. Hey, Rich told me it was just salad. That's very, very sketchy. I think he was trying to get sympathy so we'd order Chinese food. Anyway, so John just ratted him out. There was chicken to go in the salad. Anyway. All right, well, no one has any questions. You can still ask me questions later on. And we're building up on deep learning, semantic rendering. We're building up the CTisus stuff on that. So you should be seeing it soon. And with that, I thank everybody for their attention. And hopefully, unlike last week, I will end the live video when I end it. Bye-bye.